I was lying in a hospital bed, still wearing a wristband with my name misspelled, when my phone vibrated and showed me the moment my life tilted sideways. On the tiny screen, I watched a tow truck back up to my private storage barn. A man with bolt cutters snapped my lock like it was made of plastic, and standing a few feet away, hands on hips, sunglasses on, perfectly calm, was the president of my HOA, already acting like she'd won. I didn't scream. I didn't call anyone in a panic. I just stared at the screen and realized that while I'd been unconscious for a few hours, someone had decided my property was no longer mine. Let me rewind, because nothing about this started with a tow truck or a hospital bed. It started the way HOA nightmares usually do, small, annoying, and easy to ignore if you don't know what you're looking at. I'm a quiet guy. Middle-aged, single, keep my lawn neat, wave to neighbors, don't overshare. My job is one of those jobs people gossip about if you talk too much, so I don't. I go to work. I come home. I mind my business. My one real outlet, the thing that keeps me sane, is restoring classic cars. Old muscle, old steel, the kind of machines that require patience and respect. I don't work on them in my driveway. I don't rev engines at night. I rent a private storage barn on the edge of town outside HOA boundaries with a commercial-grade lock and cameras that back up to the cloud. Every car has paperwork, leases, VINs, insurance photos. Order matters to me. Karen Whitmore hated that she couldn't control that part of my life. Karen was the HOA president, the kind who treated the position like it came with a badge and a siren. Grass-height mailbox scuffs, trash can placement. She narrated rules like scripture. She didn't suggest things. She pronounced them. Most people complied because it was easier than pushing back. I didn't argue with her, not because I agreed, but because I knew the difference between noise and power. I thought if I stayed boring enough, she'd move on to someone else. I was wrong. The first red flag came in an email from a brand new HOA account I'd never seen before. Subject line: final notice. Unauthorized vehicle storage. That alone made me blink, because I didn't store vehicles anywhere near HOA property. The attachment was a polished PDF demanding I sign an authorization allowing the HOA to coordinate removal of abandoned vehicles. The language was slick friendly, even like it was doing me a favor. But the goal was obvious. Get my signature. Turn consent into compliance. I didn't fire back an angry reply. I forwarded the email to my lawyer and saved the header. When we checked the metadata, it showed the document had been edited twice that night and last saved on a device named Karen Laptop. That was the moment I understood what kind of game she was playing. 2 days later, another email. Softer tone. The HOA can coordinate a tow vendor at minimal cost to you. Same form. Different subject line. Same trap. I replied with one sentence. All communications in writing. HOA has no authority over off-site property. Then I sent a certified letter to the HOA's registered agent telling them to stop contacting me about assets outside their jurisdiction and to preserve all records. I had the receipt, the tracking number, the delivery confirmation. Karen pretended it never existed. Instead, she escalated. She emailed the board and the neighborhood list calling me hostile and uncooperative, announcing the HOA would initiate an abandoned vehicle process. She started using county-style language, public safety hazards, abatement words meant to scare people into nodding along. She wasn't talking HOA anymore. She was borrowing authority she didn't have and hoping no one would check. Then my life cut sideways. I was on duty when a distracted driver clipped me during a traffic stop. No drama, no heroics, just physics and bad timing. I ended up in the ER for imaging and observation, sore and stuck under hospital rules that treat phones like hazards. Karen didn't know where I was. She just knew I wasn't pushing back in real time. At 10:17 a.m., my barn camera sent an alert. Motion detected. The live feed showed 2 men in work shirts standing by a tow truck. A third guy had a locksmith kit out by the fence line. And there was Karen in a blazer and sunglasses, supervising, pointing, never touching anything herself. She looked like a project manager, like this was routine. I watched it from the hospital parking lot, my hands shaking just enough to make the screen blur. I didn't shout. I documented. Screenshots with timestamps. A short video clip showing her clearly on scene. I called the barn owner and asked one question. Has anyone other than me been authorized to enter my unit? He said no. I asked him to text that answer. He did. When I was discharged, I drove straight there. The lock was gone. The door had fresh scrape marks, tire scuffs cut across the concrete. The manager met me at the gate, pale and defensive. He told me Karen said she was acting as an agent for the landowner. I asked if he'd seen paperwork. He hesitated, then handed me a photo he'd taken of a notice taped to the door. Wrong parcel number. A proof of service field filled with a certified mail tracking number. My tracking number. The one from the letter I'd sent to stop her. That was the moment something in my chest cracked open. Not anger, something colder. Because I realized she hadn't just overreached. She'd stolen my paperwork and used it to fake legality. Karen wasted no time locking in her version of events. She posted in the neighborhood chat, "Cleanup complete. We prevented a hazard." She used "we" like she'd saved the community. Social proof first, questions later. I went home and sat at my kitchen table staring at the empty coffee mug in front of me, and for the first time in a long while I wondered if I was wrong. Not legally, I knew the facts, but strategically. I wondered if staying quiet had been a mistake. If by refusing to play HOA politics, I'd handed her the narrative. I felt tired, bone-deep tired. The kind where you start asking yourself if it's worth fighting, if the system is too tangled, if maybe you should just cut your losses and move on. My cars weren't just metal. They were years of work, memories, the one place my brain went quiet. And now they were sitting in a junkyard somewhere tagged like scrap. I almost stopped there. What pulled me back wasn't rage, it was records. I filed a records request with the county clerk for any abandoned vehicle filings tied to my VINs and the barn parcel. My attorney filed for an emergency restraining order. Karen responded with a cease and desist letter by email, allegedly from an attorney warning me not to harass HOA officers. The bar number didn't exist. The firm address was a mailbox rental. The metadata matched her earlier documents. Then the clerk called my attorney. An abandoned vehicle affidavit had been filed listing Karen as authorized agent for the landowner. It claimed notice had been served to me by certified mail. The tracking number mine, the same one she'd copied. That was the pivot. The tow invoice led us to the junkyard. The owner got cooperative fast once he realized he might be holding stolen property. My cars were there, not yet crushed, waiting on lien completion. He handed over intake sheets, dates, signatures. Karen still tried to posture. At an HOA meeting, she brought a binder and announced she'd handled a nuisance that was devaluing homes. I didn't debate. I asked one question loud enough for the room to hear. What authority do you believe you have over a private storage barn outside HOA boundaries? She smiled and said, "Abandoned property is abandoned property." People nodded because confidence sounds like truth if you don't challenge it. The hearing room smelled like old carpet and cold air. Karen sat with her attorney and that binder like it was armor. She glanced at me with the calm of someone who thought confidence was evidence. My attorney didn't perform. He presented lease, county map, camera clips, timeline, clerk logs. The judge asked Karen one clean question. Did you authorize the tow and locksmith? She said she supervised an abatement. The judge read one line from the clerk's log and looked at her. So you claim you served the owner, but your proof shows you served yourself. Her shoulders tightened. Her eyes flicked to her attorney. The binder stayed open, but her certainty folded shut. The court halted the process, ordered the cars preserved, flagged the affidavit as disputed. The junkyard produced emails, Karen pushing for speed, urging them to finalize before the weekend. The fallout came fast. The HOA board voted to remove her as president to limit liability. Vendors were cut loose. Sanctions were scheduled. 2 weeks later, I walked into the impound yard and saw my cars lined up like evidence, not junk. I checked VIN's photographed condition-signed releases. At settlement, Karen wouldn't look at me. She signed with a hand that shook just enough to tell the truth. She paid for everything. The HOA sent a written retraction. The county record was corrected. That weekend, I rolled one car back into the barn, replaced the lock with a higher-rated model, and sat on a folding chair for 10 quiet minutes. Not celebrating. Resetting. The lesson isn't, don't mess with the wrong guy. The lesson is simple. Confidence is noise, records are weight.